Hey everyone, welcome to Game 9 from the World Championship match between Steinitz and Lasker, which Lasker has been dominating. However, take a look, Steinitz is up a pawn. My question to you, white to move, what move would you play here? Alright, I'm going to show you now. This is actually a really important move, and Steinitz didn't quite understand that. If he simply played the move a5, now, black wants to double on the second rank. However, we can't do that right away because of the back rank checkmate. So black would have to spend time going g6. Now white could go a6. If rook to d2, a7, followed by queen. So the key move, instead of rook to d2, would be rook to a2. With the idea of rook takes rook, rook d1. And if the rook moves away, we take on a6. However, white has the very annoying response, rook on 5 to b1. And this position is actually just winning for white. The pawn is too strong. Like if black takes and plays like this is known to be a win. When you have the rook behind the pawn, it's an easy win. Now if the rook was on a8 and black's rook was on a2, for example, and there was no checks or back rank mates, then it's much more difficult. However, this is just easy. The rook is completely paralyzed. We just bring our king in to the king side, and we can use our rook along the a file. We can put it on a6, a5, a4, wherever it might be useful, whereas black can't do anything. And if black ever wins the a7 pawn, our king will go and just munch all the king side pawns. Unfortunately for Steinitz, he threw away yet another easily winning position. He played the move a3. Black got space for his king. And now the problem is if a5, rook d2, a6, rook f2, and it's going to be a draw by perpetual if you go a7. And if you go rook g5, well now just rook to a2 works. And white doesn't have any way to defend this pawn. So after g6, he just brought his rook back. And they just agreed to a draw here because there's no way to fight against these active rooks. For example, rook a2. And now with a5, we have the very annoying move, rook takes f2. If rook takes a2, rook takes a2, and if rook takes f2, rook takes a1. And black is actually up a pawn. So after this move, they just agreed to a draw because he realized there's no way he's going to be able to hold on to the a4 pawn anymore. So usually it makes sense to get space for your king in positions like this. However, in this case, it was more important to push that pawn as fast as possible. So he had to think a little more concretely than he did. If he played a5, he would have ended up with a technically winning position. Instead, he didn't, and yet again, let victory, what's the saying? Let victory slip through his fingers. Anyway, thanks guys for watching. Lasker remains up 5 games in the match.